Hello everyone. I would like to read you a poem by Jonathan Swift tonight. Satirist, poet, great writer, best known for Gulliver's Travels. This is my book of Swift's major works, and it was given to me some years ago by an old friend of mine, the brilliantly talented actress, comedian and cabaret performer Sarah Louise Young. Not to be confused with the English pornographic actress of the same name. Sarah Louise Young, I believe, personal opinion, but I believe, amongst other things, is actually sexier than her pornographic namesake. And I dropped the name just simply because when I knew I wanted to read this poem, which is called A Beautiful Young Nymph Goes to Bed. I knew I wanted to read it on this channel. And I did a little bit of research, looked on YouTube for other people who may have read it, just to see what kind of a take they gave on the text. And I came across a music video by Sarah Louise Young, a cabaret song she wrote called Karina, which is directly based on this poem. It's inspired, if you like, by this very poem. And she gave me the book, and I sort of only really know about this poem because Sarah Louise gave me this book many years ago. So I thought it tied in really nicely. It was a really nice little coincidence. The poem is about a street walking prostitute, a harlot, if you will, in the West End of London. It mentions in the first lines Drury Lane, Covent Garden. Staggering home in the dark, unlit streets. This was written in the 1700s, no street lighting or anything, and getting back to her lodgings and taking off her makeup, taking off her wig. And the poem, you know, let's face it, it's a little bit cruel. Swift presents the subject of this poem, whose name is Karina. He presents her kind of as a figure of pity, but also I think a little bit as a figure of ridicule. Swift's very, very witty in everything he does, and he can't help kind of but be witty at this poor young hooker's expense. It's a really, really good poem. It's kind of grotesque. I think it's important that the street lighting aspect of this. You know, you've got to remember that like the city at the time was very, very dark, and these whores would like go up to guys who were drunk out of their minds on this paint stripper gin that they used to drink at the time. Lethal stuff, never be allowed legally now. Real bathtub brew, you know, and they wouldn't be able to, because they're, you know, completely, they've got their gin goggles on and they're completely out of their minds, and also it's really dark. They wouldn't necessarily know if these hookers were pretty or not. And the poem, you know, as the sort of makeup comes off and the wig comes off and the various things comes off, the illusion of beauty is shattered, and Karina is revealed for the sorry mess that she is, and the kind of the horrific wear and tear and the loneliness of her profession is laid bare as well. So yeah, here we go. This is A Beautiful Young Nymph Going to Bed by Jonathan Swift. Karina, pride of Drury Lane, for whom no shepherd sighs in vain, never did Covent Garden boast so bright a battered strolling toast. No drunken rake to pick her up, no cellar where on tick to sup, returning at the midnight hour, 4 stories climbing to her bower. Then, seated on a 3-legged chair, takes off her artificial hair. Now picking out a crystal eye, she wipes it clean and lays it by. Her eyebrows from a mouse's hide, stuck on with art on either side, pulls off with care, and first displays 'em, then in a playbook smoothly lays 'em. Now dexterously her plumpers draws that serve to fill her hollow jaws, untwists a wire, and from her gums a set of teeth completely comes. Pulls out the rags, contrive to prop her flabby dugs, and down they drop. Proceeding on, the lovely goddess unlaces next her steel-ribbed bodice, which by the operator's skill press down the lumps, the hollows fill. Up goes her hand, and off she slips the bolsters that supply her hips. with gentlest touch, she next explores the canker's issues, running sores, effects of many a sad disaster, and then to each applies a plaster. But must, before she goes to bed, rub off the daubs of white and red, and smooth the furrows in her front with greasy paper stuck upon't. She takes a bolus ere she sleeps, and then between two blankets creeps, with pains of love tormented lies, or if she chance to close her eyes, of Bridewell and the Compter dreams, and feels the lash and faintly screams, or by a faithless bully drawn at some hedge tavern lies in pawn, or to Jamaica seems transported alone, and by no planter courted, or near fleet ditches oozy brinks, surrounded by 100 stinks. Belated seems on watch to lie, and snap some cully passing by, or struck with fear, her fancy runs on watchmen, constables, and duns, from whom she meets with frequent rubs, but never from religious clubs, whose favour she is sure to find, because she pays them all in kind. Corinna wakes, a dreadful sight! Behold, the ruins of the night! A wicked rat her plaster stole, half ate, and dragged it to his hole. The crystal eye, alas, was missed, and puss had on her plumpers pissed. A pigeon picked her issue peas, and shook her tresses filled with fleas. The nymph, though, in this mangled plight, must every morn her limbs unite. But how shall I describe her arts, to recollect the scattered parts, or show the anguish, toil, and pain of gathering up herself again? The bashful muse will never bear in such a scene to interfere. Corinna, in the morning dizened, who sees will spew, who smells be poisoned.